Hi, I'm here with Tony Balbinot, singer, songwriter, guitar player of the Cadillac Angels. This is our first in a series of interviews where he's going to share his experience and inspiration in music. Tony, what first inspired you to pick up the guitar?
Well, probably what inspired me to pick up the guitar was hearing it for the first time back in Chillicothe, Illinois, when I was a kid. My mother loved guitar, especially electric guitar. Didn't see her show much interest in acoustic, but she was friends with a guy there in our little tiny town that had a jukebox in his bar. And when the records would get too scratchy for the jukebox, he would pull them out, put them in a cardboard box, and leave them on our front doorstep in the little house we lived in back there. And it was kind of like Christmas every time he'd drop off a box of records. And we didn't always have a TV, and we didn't always have very much to eat, but we always had music in that house, thanks to my mom. And she always made sure that we had a record player that worked halfway decent. So we'd get these 45s out of this box and just start playing them, and it was a big mixture of stuff. And I think I was about in the third grade or fourth grade. And I got this 45, and it just said big guitar on it. And I put that on, and it was pretty much a saxophone instrumental, but the beginning riff was on a guitar. And as far as I can remember, that was what hooked me. That was the bait that was put on the hook that grabbed this fish. And I couldn't stop then. Any record I started listening to, I was keen in on the guitar. And then, of course, later the show Bonanza came out, and when I heard that theme song, it starts with electric guitar. And I really didn't care that much about the show. I just wanted to always see the beginning, to hear that song. So then my cousins, as I got a little older, they started visiting. They'd come over from Canton, Illinois, where I was born. And my cousin John would bring his Duane Eddy records with him. Now, people have all their music on phones, but back then, my cousins that were quite a bit older than me, they'd go around with a little case with 45s in it, or a bigger suitcase with their albums in it. They'd share music that way. And we were living out in the country then, and he brought those Duane Eddy records over, and it was just like, wow, listen to that guitar. I still had never seen a guitar in person. In these little towns in the Midwest, there were no music stores. The only thing you could really do was maybe order a guitar from Montgomery Ward or Spiegel or Sears, and I was too young for that. We didn't have the money for that. So later on, when we moved back into Chillicothe, my best friend, Danny Rogers, he said, hey, you got to come over to my house and see what I've got. So I went over, and he takes me upstairs to his little bedroom that was a converted part of the attic. And he goes down, and I'll never forget how he did it too. He just sort of smooths out the bedspread on his little bed. Then he reaches in underneath and he pulls this case out. And I could tell by the shape of it what it was. And he opened that case, and it was like all of the senses came alive. The smell of the lacquer, the smell of that brand new case, the smell of that brand new guitar, the visual, that beautiful sunburst finish. And then hitting the strings, feeling how they felt and listening to it. I didn't even want to pick it up. I just remember running my hands over it and feeling the curves of it. And I have, to this day, never experienced anything quite that life-changing as opening up that little guitar case on my best friend's bed and seeing for the first time and holding for the first time a guitar. It was probably a acoustic guitar from Sears, or maybe Harmony out of Chicago. And some guys had come through town and were offering guitar lessons. And if you took lessons from them, they gave you these loaner instruments to learn on. And Danny's family was just a little bit more affluent than we were, and so he was able to take advantage of that offer of these traveling musicians who would give lessons in these small little podunk towns that we grew up in. So I guess I would have to say, rounding this up, is that my mother inspired me, because my mother really, really loved the sound of the electric guitar, and it was passed on to me. And once I heard it, I knew that that's what I wanted to have and what I wanted to play as far as an instrument. Never had an interest in any other instrument, really, other than the electric guitar.
Very cool. Well, thank you for that. And we'll come back to you with more questions for Tony. And actually, if you guys have any questions for him, feel free to ask them below this video, and we'll get them on tape and get answers to you. Thanks a lot.
Sure.